Hello, welcome to Learn DGLux5 channel. My name is Paul Sinenko, and today we're going to take a break from a lot to our topics that we've had for in the past few episodes, and we're going to look at something a bit simpler. We're going to look at setting up your widget libraries. We'll take a look at various different types of widgets, naming conventions, library projects, and other methods to manipulate your library, save it, store it, and distribute it across kind of your various installations. So sit back, enjoy. This one should be easy.
Hey, welcome to the controls, and well, let's just get going. So as a step one, we'll go ahead and create a brand new project so we can deal with pristine widget library. So I'm going to use default as my profile, which you would find in any installation of DGLux. And I'm going to name this project my project. So we're not going to get too creative here. There we go. And as you can see, my current widget palette is quite empty. I do have a default set of widgets called dashboard, which come from another project on this server, and they're usually included by default, especially if you use default as your project template. But we'll get into library projects a little bit later in this video. For now, let's deal with actual library in this project. So like I mentioned, it's completely empty. So let's get something in there. If you've dealt with DGLux before, you probably know that widgets are symbols, and you would be correct. So let's go ahead and create one, and we'll see what it takes to make it a widget. I'm going to create a very simple symbol, which will consist of a square. I will, however, give it a border so we can tell it apart from the background. Right, and I don't know, let's draw a rectangle inside. Something like this. I'm going to go ahead and convert this to a symbol and name this symbol my square. Okay, so I'm gonna need to save this page. And in order to get this symbol to show up as a widget in my palette here, I have to save it under the palette folder. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to do File, Save As, go to my palette, and give it a name, My Widgets. Okay, so that added a page called My Widgets to the palette. Right, and you notice that you now have My Widgets group in your widget chooser palette on the bottom. So if we click it, it will show you the content of that widget. As you can probably deduce from here, every page you save under palette becomes a group in your widget chooser. And any component on your root of your page becomes a widget. So here we have our square. However, for some reason, it's named group. So why is it named group even though we named the symbol my square? Well, because the widget does not assume the name of the symbol. It actually uses the name you gave it in the outline. And we didn't give it any. It's still named group in the outline. So let's go ahead and rename this to green square. I'm going to resave the page. If I mouse over my widget now it says green square. That's better. So now I can use this in any of my pages, like so. If you look at the path of the symbol, you see that it now refers to palette, my widgets, colon, and then name of the symbol. So this is how you reference a symbol from a library page, or actually from any page in your project space. So if you have some symbols on the page you've already built and you want to use those on another page, this is how you reference them. Okay, that's great. So what happens if I modify it? So first, I'm going to close my widgets page because we don't want to have the instance open at the same time as we're modifying it. And if I double click it, remember, this is the new page where I'm simply using the widget. right? So I do get a warning that I'm about to edit the widget that is not located on this page. Of course, it's not because it's coming from a library page right here that we've just created. So I'm going to agree to that, and I'm going to change the square from green to, I don't know, yellow. So look what happens. So it obviously changed all the instances on this page. However, it went further than that. It also changed it on my original widgets page. So what does this mean? This means that if you modify a symbol that you've used from your palette page, from your library, basically, it will affect everywhere you have used that symbol. So you will be making changes to every reference of that symbol. So you have to be careful with that. This is also very useful because if you use the symbol for something over and over again, then you can make a sweeping change to that in one shot. You don't have to find and fish out every copy of it that you've used and modify it, right? It will just propagate because everything is referencing that same symbol. Okay, well, what if you actually don't want that? What if you want your widget to be somewhat of a template that you start with, but then you can modify further without affecting its original, so to say, prototype? Well, that can be done as well. And close this page and reopen my widgets. So to do that, I just don't have to make it a symbol. So let's do something different. I'm going to create a group again. And I'm going to use the same styling cues, except use different colors so we can tell them apart. All right, so it's just a group. And inside this group, I'm going to draw a circle. And let's make it green just out of spite. Okay. And I'm going to name it here yellow circle. Notice I did not make it a symbol, right? I literally just named the group with all of its content and stopped at that. So I'm going to save the page. Right? Look, so now that widget is also in my library and I can go and use it. However, when I drag it out, notice that I don't get just one widget. I get the whole structure. I get all the components that were in this widget because it's not a symbol. It's just a component. And these are not references. These are just copies of a component because you cannot reference a core component. It's not a symbol. So I can now go and modify this. And this will in no way affect the original widget. Right? So this way you can create a library of basically kind of half-baked goods, right? So prototypes from which you can modify further according to your needs, rather than trying to create a symbol for every possible life scenario that you may encounter in your project. So quite useful. Okay, so now we know how to create symbol widgets and non-symbol widgets. What's next? Well, now we can take a look at what it takes to group them, to basically arrange them in groups to make browsing easier. Or I guess they would be subgroups if you would consider this my widget to be a group. So let's explore that. To do that, we're going to go back to my widgets page here. And let's see if we can make these two part of the kind of pop-up group, right? So we can group them in a nice dialog or matrix, I guess, that will let me pick one of them. This is very useful when you deal with multiples of similar widgets. For example, gauges, right? Or pipe segments or something where you don't want a long stretched kind of snake of widgets here that you need to scroll through. With a nice grid kind of popped in front of you to choose. So to do that, we're going to also place them in the group in our widget page. Right, so I'm going to add a group. Sorry, I don't know where. Oh, I added a group into the widget. We don't want that. I'm going to add a group to the stage. There. Can even give it some styling. So again, I can pick it apart. Okay, so if I save this now, well, this is just going to appear as a third widget here. I'm going to have this group with a gray outline. But instead of doing that, I'm going to move my widgets into that group like that. And under advanced of that group property, I'm going to filter it for widget, and I'm going to enable widget group. Okay, this will prevent the group from group itself from being widgetized, and it will be treated as a entity that's grouping the widgets that's inside them. So let's look what happened. Well, first let me name it. Name it boxes, and I'm going to save. So look what happened. Now, right, this shows up as a single tile called boxes, and when I mouse over, right, it shows me the content of that, which is the two widgets that I created. Now, arrangement does not matter here. So it doesn't matter how visually this group looks like, and it doesn't matter where in this group the widgets are, right? So you don't have to arrange them in any special way. So you can literally dump them anywhere you want. Right? And of course, this will just create a browsable grid for you to pick for your project. So this way you can combine like widgets into grids that don't take up space in your widget library, and will let you nicely arrange your widgets for people to use. You should be nice to your users. Okay, so that part was hopefully fairly easy as well. So let's move on. Well, to illustrate the next topic, what I've done here is I found and uploaded few just regular PNGs for us to use in the next segment. And what we're going to be looking at is how to change this icon, how widget shows in your library. Not all widgets kind of have presentable view when you just capture their look. Sometimes it's it's just an issue with color. Let's say they're dark widgets and they show up over a dark background, so visually they don't provide any cue. Or sometimes they're just visually not very appealing when they're reduced to this small size. Whatever may be the reason. Let's say you want to dress this selector up nicer and use a special icon rather than the image itself. Well, that you can do as well. So if we go to one of our widgets and under advanced properties, we're going to search for, again, we'll just search for widget, for icon. And there's a property called palette icon. Well, this is where you can specify how this widget shows in your palette. So let's go ahead and drag one of the icons, a caterpillar here. Right? And for the next one, we'll use fly. And for circle, we'll use a ladybug. Right? And you can also use one for the group itself. I don't have any more, so let me just use the fly again. All right, so let's go ahead and save the page. All right, so in that, of course, changes how your widget library looks now. So again, if your widgets are not the type that are easy to distinguish by looking at their reduced size version, go ahead and use your icon. So make the icon look as good as you want and use that in your widget library. Okay, moving on. Now let's step away for a second from widget library and just look at widgets on a page. What can we do to manage widgets on the page that we're building? So first, let's explore naming convention. So this page does not currently have any widgets other than the one we brought in from the library. We're going to delete that. And let's go ahead and create a symbol. Again, we'll use just the group. Give it fill to tell it apart. And convert this to a symbol. We'll call this form. Let's pretend this is a form. Okay, so we have a symbol called form. Right now it's easy to find, so no problem. Now let's say we want this form to have some fields, properties. So we need a symbol for a property. So I'm going to go ahead and create another group. That, and this is going to be a form property. By the way, let me just change the color. This green is just getting to me. I don't know how you feel about it, but I hate it. So yeah, should probably select it. Oh yeah, it's a symbol. I need to go in and change it there. There. Okay, so I have this group, which I'm gonna convert to a symbol, and I'm gonna call this property or field, form field. All right. Okay, so now I have two symbols next to each other, form and form field. Well, form field is basically a child of the form, right? It's going to be inside the form. So it'd be nice if there was a way to nest this symbol inside the form symbol, so you can tell how they're related, even by browsing. So you don't have to open one to see if it's using the other. And there's a way to do that. So there are two ways to do it, actually. You can use naming convention, first of all. So if you rename this symbol and name it as form field, this will nest it under form. So basically, using the name dot pattern, you can nest it as deep as you want. So if I want to nest something inside this form field, let me create another symbol. And let's call this one value. So give it yet another fill, convert to symbol. And I'm going to call it form field value. Right? And I just nested it here. This does not affect anything in terms of how they work and how they share data. This is purely aesthetical arrangement in the tree here. This helps you tell what's what when you try to browse and debug the page. This does not affect how symbol performs in any way at all. So they don't have to be nested. They'll work the same exact way. So when you create a name that does get nested, all it changes is the name itself, where now it's longer. It contains something dot something dot something. Okay. So that another way to nest something is to actually create it inside that symbol. So let's get into the form. And inside this form, so I'm editing the form symbol now, I'm going to add another group. Give it a fill, convert to a symbol. And here I'm not going to use the dot convention. I'm just going to give it a name. Call it button, because my form will also have buttons. However, when I look at my symbols, you see that the button got nested under the form. So if the symbol is created while editing another symbol, it will get nested by default. You don't actually have to use the dot convention. As a matter of fact, if you do, it'll get nested twice. So just to show you an example so you can avoid it in the future. So I'm still editing this form symbol. I'm going to create another group in here and give it yet another shade of gray. I'm starting to run out of shades of gray here because I don't have 50. And convert this to a symbol. And let's say I decide to manually give it the dot naming convention. So form dot uh, button A. So another version of the button. So what that did is it nested this under form by default, but because I also used the form dot convention, it created a form folder, and under that it nested the button A symbol. So notice that you can use in your naming convention, you can use anything dot anything. If such a symbol happens to exist, right, then it'll get nested under that symbol. If it doesn't, it'll show up as a folder like this. Okay, so using this convention, you can arrange this quite nicely, and and make it browsable and friendly to the next person that has to deal with your page. The same exact approach is used in the data flow when it comes to data flow symbols. When you create data flow symbols, you can use the same naming convention using value.value.value to nest symbols as deep as you want. All right, done with this one. Moving on. So now, as our last segment, now that we've created this great widget library and we have this project that contains this great widget library, what if we wanted to distribute that? So how do we include a project into another project as a library? So let's say this project, this was specifically created to build a vast library of widgets. Let's say a data center with its various components, racks and cracks and power equipment, you name it. So how do you then include it or make it easy to use all those widgets on various other projects that you do? Well, so that part is fairly easy. So you can, when it exists as a project on the server you already plan to develop something else on, you can include it as a library. So to demonstrate, I'm going to create, not new file, new project, and default, call it my cool project. There we go. And let's say those bugs that I created, well, the widgets with bug icons, let's say I want to bring them in here and use them in this project. So to do that, I need to right click on the lib folder, and you will find this folder under every project by default. If you don't, for whatever reason, you can create it. Just call it lib, all lowercase, and it'll start functioning the way it's supposed to. So right click, call import library, and here you choose that project, right? The one we've created, that's called my project. Right, so this adds another section here in the widget chooser, which will display all the widgets you have created in that project you're bringing in. Now this is also visible here under lib, and this is a reference. This is not a copy, meaning that if you go make changes to widgets here, it will affect everywhere else you use this project as a library on this server. When you export your project that contains the library, however, then a copy is created. So if I decide to export my cool project, export current project, download. All right, I'm going to save this. And let's take a look at this zip. All right, so you will notice that it's got my project included here. So it has the dashboard here, my project here, and the cool project, which is the project itself into which I brought my other projects. So it gets basically packaged with your project when you have to take it to another server, export it. So it can be distributed that way, literally as a project that you bring in. Another way is to make it a template. So as you know, any project can be made a template. So let me go ahead and open our library project one more time. And this will be my project. And under project properties, I can make this a template. When I do that, every subsequent project that is created, right, using my project as a template, now it shows up as a template, notice that. So we'll create a new project, will be my cool project 2, will be a copy of the project that contains the library. So my project, right? But again, these are not references right now because this is a clone of the original my project. So this is just a clone because it was created from the template, my project, right? But these widgets are local to this project. And that's all we wanted to cover for today. And with that, back to the studio.
Well, that was it. That's it for this topic. Hopefully, you're now able to neatly arrange your widgets and manage your widget libraries. Good luck to you in your projects and go build something.